Some debts are inherited long before we're old enough to know we're carrying them. A powerful moment is about to unfold in this story of legacy, pride, and unexpected revelations. Let us know in the comments section below where you're watching from and what you think will happen when truth finally comes to light. Chase Langford hated lateness, not because he valued time, but because it gave other people too much of it, too much time to prepare, too much time to guess his next move, too much time to imagine they were equals. He stood near the grand staircase of the Langford Regency Hotel, a towering column of glass and marble in the heart of Atlanta, inspecting his reflection in a gold-framed mirror. Tailored black tuxedo, crisp collar, cufflinks gleaming under the chandelier's glow, the image of a man who owned not just the building, but everything that happened inside it. He adjusted the knot on his bow tie, just slightly off. Too neat would seem rehearsed. He needed the effortless perfection of someone born into power, not begging for it. Behind him, hotel staff buzzed about like ants underfoot. A junior manager brushed past too close, and Chase's voice sliced through the room like a scalpel. "Jared, two things. That champagne on the east table, wrong vintage, fix it. And those tablecloths? They should whisper money, not scream clearance sale." "Yes, Mr. Langford," Jared replied, tone polite, tight. The young man had the restraint of someone who needed the paycheck more than the pride. Chase barely glanced at him. The night was important. The annual Heroes of Valor Gala, their biggest one yet. Politicians, media figures, top-tier donors, all here not just to sip and pose, but to write checks with lots of zeros. The Langford Foundation was expanding into national territory, and Chase had plans, expensive ones. His speech was printed, rehearsed, folded neatly into his breast pocket. He'd end on his father, the late Thomas Langford, a war hero, a decorated Marine who'd never made it home from Vietnam. That always landed with donors. Tragedy and patriotism made for a lucrative blend. Then he'd unveil the new wing, the Thomas Langford Memorial Medical Center for returning veterans, a gleaming, modern project built to look like compassion but function like PR. He checked his Rolex again. 5 minutes past the opening remarks. Time to enter. He turned away from the mirror, satisfied. The cameras were waiting, the applause would come easy. No one in that ballroom would question the Langford name. Not tonight. But as Chase descended the staircase into the grand lobby, William Goodman stepped through the revolving door. He moved slow but straight-backed, his brown leather shoes worn smooth by decades. His jacket was navy, loose at the shoulders, and the tie knotted too wide. In his left hand, a creased manila envelope clutched like it held something alive. In his right, a cane, not for show but for necessity. William Goodman had not entered this place to be seen. He came because a promise, once made on bloodied earth, doesn't fade just because everyone forgets. Inside the envelope was a dog tag and a letter written 56 years ago, the kind of thing that belongs to a son when the father never came home. He didn't expect fanfare. He certainly didn't expect trouble. But old habits died hard. As soon as he entered, his eyes scanned the corners, the exits, the subtle details most people missed. You don't spend years in the field and forget how to read a room. The hotel's opulence didn't faze him. He'd seen what marble turned into when the world collapsed, rubble and dust and cries for help. He didn't need chandeliers to know a man's worth. At the front desk, a young woman in black formal wear glanced up, startled by the sight of him. No name tag. New, probably. "And can I help you, sir?" He nodded once. Polite. "Yes, ma'am. I'm here for the gala, Heroes of Valor." Her expression flickered. "Do you have an invitation?" "I don't," he admitted. "But I was told the Langford Foundation might be able to make an exception. I served with Thomas Langford." She hesitated. Then her training kicked in. "Let me check with someone." As she disappeared through a side door, William moved to the edge of the lobby. He didn't want to be in the way. His joints ached more than they used to. The polished tile was brutal on the knees. He found a small leather bench tucked under an arched window and lowered himself onto it slowly, exhaling with relief. That's when he heard the voice. "Jesus, you let just anyone in here now?" Chase Langford, hands tucked casually into his tuxedo pants, stood 10 feet away, talking to Jared, loud enough to be overheard. "Homeless cosplay," Chase said, half laughing. "Tell security to redirect him to the bus station. Or get him a sandwich or whatever." Jared glanced toward William and winced. "I think he's here about Thomas Langford. Said he served with him." That pulled a pause from Chase. Then a smirk. "Sure, and I was in the Battle of Hogwarts." He walked past William like he wasn't there. But William stood up, not fast, but with intent. "I didn't come for a sandwich." Chase turned, his smile more curious now than cruel. "No?" "Then what did you come for, old man?" William held up the envelope. The paper trembled only slightly. "To keep a promise." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even dramatic. But something about the quiet firmness in William's voice made the lobby go still for half a beat. Chase didn't like being unsettled, especially not by people who didn't belong. He leaned closer, voice lowering. "Well, this isn't your war, and it isn't your stage, so whatever promise you think matters, it doesn't. Not tonight." William didn't answer. He just watched Chase walk away, already basking in the applause that was waiting beyond the ballroom doors. But William Goodman had made it through worse than rejection. And the night wasn't over, not by a long shot. William didn't sit back down. Something about Chase Langford's eyes, the way they glanced through him, not at him, twisted in his gut like a bayonet. It wasn't the disrespect. He'd seen plenty of that in the years since the uniform came off. It was the arrogance. The way Chase walked like no one could touch him, like he was immune to consequence, as if the world owed him something simply for being born, into a name carved onto brass plaques and marble. But William wasn't here to be angry. He was here because a promise was a promise. He'd carried that dog tag and that folded letter through 3 moves, 5 different doctors, 2 surgeries, and a heart attack. He'd meant to deliver it decades ago, but the world had a way of spinning off course. Now time was brittle, his memory too. But this was clear. He pulled the envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket and opened it gently. Inside, a stained letter, edges curled and brittle from age. And a single dog tag, the chain coiled like a snake that had gone to sleep. "Langford, Thomas R." Pause. "U.S." The tag clicked lightly against the bench as William stared at it, remembering. Thomas had been the loud one in their unit, always cracking wise, always too damn eager to volunteer. They'd called him Hollywood because he looked like the kind of guy who got the girl and lived to the end credits, but that's not how things worked out. One night, their convoy got hit just outside Fubai. Ambush. Thunder and blood in the dark. William dragged 2 men out under fire. One of them was Thomas. Or what was left of him. He'd stayed with him while he bled out, whispering promises into a dying man's ear. "I'll tell your son everything. I'll bring him your tag. I'll tell him what you did. I swear it." But when he got home, there was no address, no phone number, no family waiting. Just silence. Until last month, a nurse at the VA clinic in Savannah, kind-hearted woman named Laura, had helped track down a name, said the son was now some big-shot businessman in Atlanta, hotel magnate, Chase Langford. Same eyes, same cheekbones. William had nodded then, even before she showed him the photo. "Guess I owe a visit." And so here he was, being told to get a sandwich. Jared returned a few minutes later, his expression apologetic but tight. "Mr. Goodman," he said quietly, "I'm sorry about earlier. He's intense before speeches." William smiled a little. "I've been shot at. I think I'll survive." Jared chuckled nervously. "Look, I can't get you into the ballroom, but maybe wait here a while? Once things calm down, I'll talk to the Foundation's coordinator, Rachel Monroe. She's not like him. She actually cares about the vets." William nodded, tucking the tag away. "I appreciate it." Jared hesitated. "Was it true? About Thomas Langford?" "Every word." "You knew him?" William's voice softened. "I held his hand while he died." Jared blinked. The weight of that sentence settled on his shoulders. "I'll see what I can do." He walked off again, and William was alone. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, eyes scanning the gleaming lobby. The world had gotten shinier since '68, cleaner, but somehow colder, like everything real had been polished away. A young boy, maybe 6 or 7, wandered near him, dressed in a tiny suit and tie, holding a toy plane in one hand. His parents were distracted near the registration table. "Hey, mister," the boy said, bright-eyed. "Are you a soldier?" William smiled. "I used to be." The boy pointed to the little enamel pin on his lapel, a faded Navy crest. "My uncle was a soldier. He's got one of those. He's in the sky now. I bet he's watching over you." The boy nodded, solemn all of a sudden, then offered the toy plane to William like it was sacred. "Here, you can hold it if you want." William took it gently, turning it over in his palm. A plastic F-18, chipped at the wing. "Lost bird," he said. "Used to watch those scream across the sky. Nothing like 'em. My uncle said they sound like dragons." "That's about right." The boy's mother finally noticed and hurried over, giving William a polite but cautious smile. "Come on, Logan, don't bother the gentleman." "He's not bothering me," William said softly. "Your boy's got good manners." The woman's eyes softened just slightly. "Thank you." They walked off. Logan turned once, gave a little wave. William waved back. Another name passed through his mind, one of the men who hadn't made it. Jimmy, the radio man. Barely 20. Hadn't even kissed a girl before Vietnam. William had carried his story, too. Some days it felt like he carried all of them. "Mr. Goodman?" He looked up. The woman who stood before him wore a navy blue dress, her hair tied back, clipboard in hand. Not hotel staff, not security. Someone different. "I'm Rachel Monroe," she said. "Jared told me what happened." He stood. "I'm sorry to cause trouble. I didn't mean to stir up anything." "You didn't." Her voice was clear, strong. "Would you walk with me?" He nodded, and she led him down a side corridor, away from the grand ballroom and into a smaller, quieter part of the hotel, a lounge space with low lights and leather chairs, closed off from the main crowd. He sat. "I need to ask," she said gently. "You really served with Thomas Langford?" "I did." "And you have something that belonged to him?" William reached into his coat and handed her the envelope. She opened it carefully, reading the folded letter inside. Her lips parted slightly as her eyes moved across the faded ink. "My God," she whispered, "this is his handwriting." He nodded. Rachel looked up, her expression transformed, not just surprise, but reverence. "He wrote this for Chase," she said. "I do." She set the letter on her lap. "Mr. Goodman, you need to tell him. He has to hear this." William shook his head. "I tried. He's not interested in hearing anything from someone like me." Rachel's jaw tightened. Well then, someone's going to make him listen. He didn't argue. He'd done what he came here to do. He'd put the truth in someone's hands, whether it found its mark or not. That was never his to control. But Rachel wasn't done. "I am putting you on the guest list. I don't care what Chase says. I'm the director. I make the list." William chuckled. "You got more fight in you than most of the brass I served under." She grinned. "Well, I come from a long line of stubborn people." Then her voice softened again. "Thank you for carrying this for so long." William simply nodded. The past was heavy, but sometimes, when you passed it to the right hands, it stopped feeling like a burden. And maybe, just maybe, it became something more. The ballroom was gold and crystal, light blooming from chandeliers like frozen fire. Waiters swept through with silver trays, tuxedos and gowns shimmered across the dance floor, and a string quartet played a version of America the Beautiful, slow enough to sound somber. A few aging senators clutched wine glasses and rehearsed sound bites in corners. Veterans, neatly dressed and mostly quiet, lined the outer edges of the room like a forgotten honor guard. Chase Langford stood at the podium, a figure cast in spotlight, smiling through perfect teeth as camera flashes painted him in bursts of celebrity. Behind him, the LED screen read, "Heroes of Valor," presented by the Langford Foundation. "Tonight," Chase said, "we honor those who served not just with weapons but with heart. Men and women who fought for something greater than themselves. We remember my father, Thomas Langford, who gave his life in Vietnam so others might return home." Polite applause rippled through the room. Chase continued, "His sacrifice is why the Thomas Langford Medical Center for Returning Veterans will open its doors this fall, a space of healing, progress, and dignity." More applause, louder now. Chase glanced at the donors' table. Senator Whitmore smiled approvingly. The Langford brand was holding. He'd survived the earlier awkwardness. That old man from the lobby hadn't resurfaced. Maybe someone escorted him out. He glanced to the side stage, caught Rachel Monroe standing there in her blue dress, arms crossed. She didn't clap. Rachel's eyes weren't on him. They were on William Goodman, who was now walking toward the back of the ballroom. The room hadn't noticed yet. People were still mid-toast, champagne flutes half raised. But Rachel had cleared a path for William through the side entrance, just as she said she would. William walked slower now, the weight of everything he carried heavy in his knees. His shoes made soft, dull sounds on the ballroom floor, almost swallowed by the music. He didn't look at anyone. Not until Chase saw him. The smile faltered. Chase's voice caught just slightly as he continued, "My father believed in courage, in honor, in—" William reached the front of the room, stopped. He wasn't tall anymore, not by the world's standards, but in that moment, standing before the man whose father had died in his arms, William Goodman might as well have been a giant. Rachel stepped forward with a cordless microphone. She handed it to him. Chase tried to wave her off. "That's enough, Rachel, we've already—" William raised the mic. Chase's words died. The room went still. William didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "My name is William Goodman," he said, steady and clear. "I served as a Navy corpsman during the Vietnam War. On June 23, 1969, outside of Hue, our unit was ambushed. Mortars, gunfire, men screaming. Your father, Thomas Langford, was hit saving another man. That man was me." Silence. Not even the waitstaff moved. "I dragged him back into cover," William continued. "Held him while he bled. He asked me to promise something, said he had a baby boy at home. Said if he didn't make it, he wanted his son to know who he really was, not just the medals or the uniform, but the man who cracked jokes to calm nerves, who passed around smuggled chocolate on patrol, who volunteered for every supply run because he thought it might save someone else a walk through the mud." He pulled the envelope from his jacket. "Inside this is the letter he wrote you, and his dog tag. He gave them to me that night." Murmurs, gasps. A few people stood now, stunned, uncertain whether this was performance or history, suddenly pulling up a chair beside them. "I carried this for 56 years, William said, "because I said I would." He looked at Chase. "Tried to give it to you earlier. You told me to get a sandwich." A ripple of awkward laughter from someone near the back, but it died instantly. William turned toward the crowd, gaze softening. "I didn't come here for recognition. I came because promises matter, and because sometimes the loudest rooms forget the quiet ones who made them possible." He handed the envelope to Rachel. She took it like it might break in her hands. "I'm done now," William said. "Thank you for letting me speak." He handed back the mic and turned. The ballroom remained frozen. Chase stood still behind the podium, hands clutching the edges like they were lifelines. William took 3 slow steps away. Then a sound cracked through the stillness. Clapping. One man, then another. Then it spread. Not polite, not for show. The kind of applause that filled the chest and shook the floor. A standing ovation. Not for Chase, not for the Langford Foundation, but for the man who came through the front door with a letter and a cane, and left something heavier than medals on that stage. Chase didn't know where to look. Rachel stepped beside him, voice low. "The man saved your father, and all you saw was an inconvenient." She didn't wait for a reply. She followed William out, her heels echoing over the ballroom tile. Chase stood alone. The applause still thundered around him, but none of it touched him. He looked down at the podium. His speech, the polished paragraphs, the perfect phrasing, now felt like an empty echo in a room full of truth. And all at once, the spotlight didn't feel warm anymore. It had felt blinding. The applause didn't stop when William exited the ballroom. It followed him like a tide, receding slowly, respectfully. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He hadn't come for claps or cameras. His hand trembled as he leaned heavier on his cane than before. The moment had taken more out of him than he expected, but there was peace in his step now, a kind of quiet release. Rachel walked beside him down the long marble hallway toward the quiet of the side lobby. Her eyes, still damp, scanned his face with something like awe. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "I did," he replied. "For him. And for me." They reached the bench where he had first sat earlier that evening. William eased down onto it, slowly, with care. Rachel stood for a moment, then joined him. "I don't know what he'll do with it," she said, glancing at the envelope still clutched in her hands. "That's not up to me. I kept the promise. What he does with it, well, that's his to carry now." They sat there quietly, the echoes of the grand gala bleeding faintly through the corridor walls. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It had weight, but not burden. Then footsteps. Chase Langford turned the corner, his jacket unbuttoned now, bow tie undone and hanging loose around his neck like a man suddenly too small for his tuxedo. He looked different. Not younger, not older, just realer. Something in his eyes had shifted. No cameras behind him, no crowd, just... William didn't speak. Rachel stood to give them space, walking a few paces away. Chase remained still, 5 feet in front of the bench, the envelope clutched tightly in both hands now. He looked down at it like it might explode. "I read it," he said, voice low. "Just now, in the green room." William watched him without answering. Chase's mouth moved slightly before words came. "I never knew he wrote anything before the war. My mother never said, I guess. Maybe she never got it either." He stepped closer. "It's not just a letter, it's him. It's the parts of him I never met." William nodded slowly. Chase swallowed, hard. "I built an entire brand on his name. Launched projects, foundations, spoke about him 100 times in speeches. But reading this," he looked up, eyes raw now, "I realized I've never actually known who he was. Just who people said he was. He was more than a name on a wall," William said quietly. "He was your father." Chase sat down beside him, without asking. Just 2 men, side by side, decades of distance between them, and yet something suddenly familiar. "I'm sorry," Chase said, "for earlier, for how I spoke to you, for how I saw you." William let out a small breath that was almost a laugh. "You saw what the world trained you to see, expensive suit, corner office, clean lines, and anything that doesn't match that image must be someone to ignore. I have lived my whole life surrounded by portraits of my father in uniform," Chase said, "but none of them showed him laughing. None of them told me he gave his chocolate to the guys in the back of the line." William smiled. "He had a grin like a movie star," he said. "Used to comb his hair before every patrol. Said if he was going to go out, He'd do it with style. Chase chuckled through the tears that now blurred his eyes. Yeah, it sounds like him. They sat for a long moment, neither rushing the silence. Rachel stepped closer again, watching them carefully. Chase turned to her. "I want to make a change," he said. "To the medical center. The name stays, but inside we're adding a gallery. A real one. Photos, letters, stories, from all branches, all eras. A place for the veterans no one sees. And I want William's story to be the first one on the wall." William raised an eyebrow. "I don't want to be a monument." Chase nodded. "Then we'll do it your way. Not about you, about the promise, about what it means to carry someone else's story." William thought for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but only if you put Jimmy Niles up there too, and Lucy Navarro, and Bear Johnson. I still remember every one of them." "Then we'll remember them together," Chase said. Rachel smiled, tears in her own eyes now. "Thank you," Chase said again, his voice soft. "For what?" "For not giving up, for not letting time take this away from me." William looked at him then, really looked. And beneath the layers of privilege and pressure, he saw the boy Thomas must have loved. He saw pain that had nowhere to go for a long, long time, and he saw the beginning of something else. "Your father loved you," William said. "Don't ever doubt that." "I won't," Chase whispered. They stood together slowly. William gripped the edge of the bench to rise, and Chase instinctively reached to steady him. "You good?" Chase asked. William straightened his jacket. "I'm good." Rachel handed him his cane. "I'll walk you out," Chase said. "No need," William replied, but then paused. "Actually, yeah, walk me out." They moved slowly, the three of them, through the hall. As they neared the lobby doors, Logan, the boy with the toy plane, spotted William and broke away from his parents, waving wildly. "Mister—" William waved back, smiling wide. "Still flying that jet?" "Yeah, I made it into a stealth one now." William gave him a mock salute. "You're ready for command." The boy grinned, running back to his mom. Outside the air was cool, the sky overhead scattered with stars and streetlight reflections. William paused on the sidewalk. "Feels good to breathe out here," he said. "Inside's too tight, too loud." "I think I needed to be in the noise to hear what I'd been missing," Chase said. William turned to him, offering a hand. Chase took it, firm. "I'm proud of the man you're becoming," William said. "Your father would be, too." Chase's throat tightened. "That means everything." William stepped toward the curb, raising a hand as a cab turned the corner. Rachel touched Chase's arm as the cab pulled up. "Do you think he knows what he just did in there?" she whispered. "No," Chase replied. "Because people like him never think it's about them. That's what makes them different." William opened the cab door, but before getting in, he turned once more, eyes meeting Chase's. "Keep the promise going," he said. Then he slid inside. The cab pulled away into the quiet Atlanta night, the taillights fading like memory. But something had changed. Inside the ballroom, people still talked, still laughed, still took pictures, but now they asked different questions. Now they remembered something deeper. A man with a cane and a story had reminded them that service wasn't a spectacle. It was a legacy carried in silence. Until someone brave enough decided to speak. And in the heart of the city, under the glittering lights and polished floors, a son had finally listened, and a promise had finally come home.